Good morning. It is Sunday. It's February the 21st. It's going to be a beautiful day today, and we are going to go outside and enjoy some sunshine in a little while. But first, I decided I wanted to make some cinnamon rolls today. So I'm going to make the yeast dough and let it rise while we go out and enjoy some sunshine. And then we'll come back, and I'm going to show you how to make the best homemade cinnamon rolls. I used to make these all the time for our employees at the fish camp, and I haven't made them in a long time, so we're going to try it today. Alright, so we're going to get started. In this cup, in the measuring cup, I have 1 cup of milk, and I stuck it in the microwave for a minute to get it warm enough for the yeast to activate in it. So I'm going to put 1 tablespoon of yeast in this warm milk. Now it needs to be up to at least 110 degrees, but no hotter than 135, because at 135 it will kill your yeast. So you want to just make sure it's warm, like a baby's bottle. So we're going to dissolve that 1 tablespoon of yeast into the milk. Now this recipe calls for 1/3 cup of sugar, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in there because sugar helps the yeast activate. The yeast feeds off of sugar. Bless you. Alright, so we're going to let that set for about a minute or two, and then we're going to come back and see if it's activated. Okay, it took about 5 minutes for our yeast to activate. See how bubbly it is on top? All the yeast has risen to the top of the milk, and it's gotten kind of bubbly and fermented. And the reason it took a little bit longer is because I used regular dry yeast instead of the fast-acting dry yeast. But that's okay. So we're going to put that in our mixer bowl. I'll be sure and get it all out, all that sugar. Now we're going to add 2 eggs. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt and 1/2 cup of butter, which has been softened almost to melting point. 1/2 cup is 1 stick, so that's easy to measure. Since our liquid ingredients are going in first, I'm going to use the paddle attachment on my mixer, and then when we get ready to knead the dough, I will switch over to the kneading attachment. So we're just going to mix all that together, and then we're going to start adding our flour. Now this is my bread flour. I keep it in a bowl, and I just cut the front panel off of the flour bowl or flour bag and put it in there with it so that I know that that's my bread flour. Bread flour has a higher protein content, and it makes it a little bit softer dough. So while that's mixing, we're going to add our 1st cup of flour in, and all this is going to take about 4 cups of flour. I'm going to let that go just a little bit until all that softened butter is mixed in with that 1st cup. Now we're going to add our 2nd cup of flour. Now be careful when you're doing that. I really should turn that off. I have had it to catch that spatula and send it flying, and that's a good way to get hurt. So we're just going to play it safe, and we're going to turn it off. And now we're going to turn it down and add our 3rd cup of flour. And if you don't turn it down or off, it's going to send flour all over your kitchen. So Start mixing that in. Now this is going to be a sticky dough. It's not going to be a hard dough like you would have with a pie crust. It's going to be sticky. So with this last cup of flour, I'm just going to add half a cup of flour and see how it goes and see if I actually need all of it. So there's half a cup. Okay, I can tell that we probably are going to need that other half cup, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in there. So that's 4 cups in all. And then we're just going to let it go till it forms a ball. That's why I have my apron on today. When I make dough, I have flour all over me. Let's turn it up just a little bit, see if it'll make a ball. All right, so the dough is ready, but it still has to be kneaded. So I'm going to change from my paddle attachment to my dough hook and let it do the kneading for me. I could just turn this out on a floured surface and knead it by hand, which I actually like to do. But today we're just going to use the dough hook. Alright, I'm going to knead that for about 2 more minutes and we'll be back. Alright, our dough is finished kneading. So I'm going to turn it off and show you what a beautiful dough this is. Like I said, it's sticky, but it's so elastic you can just pull it without it breaking apart. That is perfect sweet dough. This is called sweet roll dough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray this pan with some cooking spray. I'm going to put my dough in it. And I'm just going to cover it with a tea towel. Just a kitchen towel. And I'm going to let it rise for about an hour. Alright, so our dough has risen. And I have punched it down, and I've actually divided it in half, and there's 1/2 of it, and I already have the other half rolled out into a rectangular piece. And this will take a little bit of rolling. This is my mother's pastry cloth. It's a Tupperware pastry cloth, and I noticed down here in the corner it says 1965, so this one's been around a while. And I inherited it when I got her dough bowl. So we just rolled half of the dough out into a big rectangle. Now I have melted butter in this bowl, and so I'm just going to brush some butter on. Now if you don't want to go to the trouble to make this sweet dough, just go to the grocery store. If you can find frozen yeast dough in the freezer section, you can just thaw it out and use it just like this. It'll be just fine. Now in this cup I put a 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and then we're going to use cinnamon. So now it looks like more than a cup of sugar and all, but that's because I've fluffed up that packed brown sugar. So I'm going to put half of that on this piece of dough. Now at this point, be sure and get it all the way out to the edges, because if you don't, you're going to have cinnamon rolls that don't have any filling in them. Now, you could put raisins on this, pecans, cranberries, walnuts, whatever you wanted to do. If you wanted to add something to it, I'm not going to put any of that on there today because we like ours just with the sugar and cinnamon. So I'm going to cut this in half lengthways, and then again, so that's going to be 4 equal portions. And now here is where my cinnamon rolls differ from most people. Most people would have just taken this whole sheet of pastry with the cinnamon and sugar on it and rolled it up into a jelly roll and cut it into 1-inch sections. But when you do that and you put it in the baking pan, a lot of the filling falls out the bottom. So, let me get my cinnamon on here and I'll show you how I do it to keep that from happening. Alright, so I take one section of this dough, I fold it in half lengthwise like that, and I roll it up, then I tuck the end in, just like that. Let me show you one more time. So you take this section of dough with the sugars and the cinnamon on it, fold it up lengthwise, and roll it. And then when you get to the end, you take that little piece of dough and you tuck it in right there. Okay, so I'm going to finish the rest of these. I'm going to put them on a baking pan and we're going to let them rise again. Welcome back. I have let my cinnamon rolls rise for, it's actually been about 1.5 hours because I got busy doing some other stuff, and so I just let them rise. Now, I made 2 different batches of dough. The one that you watched me make, and then I made another one because I wanted to make a lot of cinnamon rolls today to give away to some people. One batch rose really well and the other didn't rise quite so well, and that's going to happen sometimes. I think what happened with mine today is I didn't have my milk warm enough for that batch, and if the milk isn't warm enough, then it takes longer for the yeast to activate. But anyway, they did rise some. This is the batch that rose the least. Let me let you see those. And then the other batch rose really well. So I'm going to bake these off. I've got my oven preheated to 400 degrees. And honestly, it's been so long since I made these, I can't remember exactly how long I baked them. So I'm going to put them in the oven and I'm going to watch them, and I'll let you know when we get back, when they're done, just how long it took to bake those. Oh my gosh, y'all, I wish you could smell what's coming out of this kitchen. There is nothing that smells better than homemade cinnamon rolls. So let me first tell you, I baked these at 400 degrees for 14 minutes is how long it took for them to get really good and golden brown. So I'm going to show you what they look like. This is the pan that I told you didn't rise quite as well, but look at that, they look great. Some of them are a little bit small, but that's just because I made them small. But now look at this pan. Oh my goodness. Now, if you want a frosting on these, you can put a frosting on them. We don't care anything about frosting on them, especially while they're still warm. But you could put a thin glaze of powdered sugar and just enough milk to thin it just a little bit and make a glaze like that. Or you could use a cream cheese frosting on them, and that would be good too. But let me tell you, if this smelled or looked any better, I'd be slapping myself to make sure I'm not dreaming. But we're going to have one in a little while when it cools down just enough to eat. I hope you'll try these. And like I said, if you don't want to make dough, just go and see if you can find you some frozen bread dough and use it like that and use this recipe for the filling. I hope you guys will try it. And if you do, I'd love to have some feedback from you and let me know if you've tried my recipes. It just tickles me to death when somebody says they've tried something that I've shown them how to cook, and especially if they like it. So let me know how it turns out. I'd love to hear from you. And God bless all of you. This is the day that the Lord has given us, and He has blessed us so much. So let's be happy and love each other, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you. Have a great day.